Insurance Committee. We've got kind of a full plate today. However, I would remind you that this is the last day for non-exempt committee meetings to meet. Well, Friday, actually, I guess, is the last day for non-exempt committee meetings to meet, committees to meet. However, we don't meet on Friday, so this will be our last regularly scheduled meeting of the session. Might have a few things at the rail to approve minutes or something along those lines, but that's really all that we're going to be achieving after today. So first off, today we're going to have discussion and action on HB 2825. Eileen, can you get us up to speed once again on 2825? Some of us may have slept.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's funny you use the word speed in relation to 2825 because I believe that was the hearing that would never end. House Bill 2825 would enact the Consumer Protection Related to Hospital Price Transparency Act. As you recall, this would require hospitals in Kansas to place the top 300 of their procedures on a website with shoppable information in a consumer-friendly format, and I could stand for questions.
All right, and just clarification, this was the one that was mirroring federal law, is that correct? Yes. Okay, very good. All right, questions for the reviser regarding 2825. Representative Blue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Eileen, I know that you mentioned this during the hearing, and then I've had lots of folks come and talk to me, and now I'm trying to fully understand again. What exactly is the mirrored from the federal, and then what is Kansas's new language? And I don't know if you can go section by section, if that makes sense what I'm asking.
I cannot do that for you, Representative. I can tell you that the goals are the same and the general requirements are the same, but I did not draft this bill. I only put it into Kansas language. So I have no idea about policy. I have no idea how any of the provisions came about, but they're legal and they do encompass the federal regulation.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I have comments for later, but I know right now we're on questions, so just so you know.
Okay, very good. Further questions for Eileen? Seeing none. All right. That was a whole lot faster than the hearing. All right, now entertain discussion on HB 2825. Representative Blue.
Thank you, Mr.
I think you had some comments.
I do have some comments. So I first want to say I appreciate this bill. My biggest thing that I keep saying with it is if you're in compliance with CMS, then you should be in compliance with this bill. There are a couple concerns I have. One is new section 4. I just think about the rural hospitals and if they're not going to be getting paid, so forth, depending if there's a bad actor, their cash flow issues. That's one thing that I have. I don't have any amendments drafted. I'm sorry, I've had my mind in a different topic and did not have enough time to fully do my research and be prepared for today, and I apologize on that. But I do want to say that I spent some time with the Hospital Association and looking over their testimony. And one thing that I would like to bring up, and again, like I said, I don't have an amendment for it, but maybe I would for the floor if I can get more information, is, you know, price transparency for insurance companies. And because as of right now, they really drive the market. And they're the ones who tell you this is how it is. One thing that I would really like to see, and I don't even know if it's germane to this bill, you know, but is insurance companies working and negotiating with more hospitals and more providers out there. So those are just some of the things that I'm hearing from my hospitals, and I'm trying to, I know they don't like this bill, but is there something that we can maybe add to make it a little bit somewhat friendly for them? But those are just my concerns, and if we work this on the House floor, I may have some amendments for it, but I just wanted to voice those comments to you guys in committee, and love to have the discussion if you guys have discussion on that.
And actually, I kind of like the sound of that. If you want to look into getting that drafted at some point, I think that might be neat.
I would love that as I look at the revisor to.
1 second.
I only can see one, but yes.
Yes, Eileen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to kind of make a statement that I believe to be true, but I believe insurance companies negotiate with healthcare facilities and providers separately. I believe all those prices that you're referring to are going to be contractually driven. That may come under trade secrets and proprietary information that can't be disclosed. So I want to throw that out there for consumption. I can do some more research on it, but I'm 92% sure.
My insurance app tells me, though. I mean, I can. Oh. Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. Representative Essex.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will say that I've also talked to a multitude of people on many sides of this issue, and one of the things, I mean, I've struggled with this, basically going off of what Representative Blue just mentioned, but also what about transparency for the medical services independent of a hospital, the standalone people who, surgery centers, I don't know, the independent groups, why aren't they held to the same standard would be a question that I would have on that as well. I did, just a piece of information, I had my intern look up all the hospitals in Kansas, and only 5% are not compliant with the federal, so that was 6 out of 121 that she was not able to find something about the price transparency. So I thought that was interesting that the majority of them are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So, but again, I would like to see, I don't know, in an amendment form, but let's, we need to hold more people to transparency instead of just those hospitals.
Wide open to it. Wide open to it. Representative Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just think this, like I say, it's already covered by the feds, so I don't see any reason why the state needs to get into that. And I know we heard before that the feds aren't finding a lot of people, and I think maybe that's because they notify the people that are not in compliance, and the hospitals that they notify get things done in a timely manner and get into compliance. So I really don't see where it's helping our hospitals any to make them subject to possibly another fine. Thank you.
All right. Oh, by the way, committee, I wanted to welcome a substitute that we have in. I should have done this in the beginning. That was rude of me. I'm sorry. You may notice the Cindy neighbor looks a little bit different today, but Representative Oropeza is here to fill her shoes. So let's welcome her to committee. Welcome. All right, Representative Miller.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I was on WebEx yesterday, so I was part of the hearing, obviously, but I was hoping that Eileen could maybe give a little bit more clarity on, considering the comment you just made about the proprietary information and some of the prices that are negotiated with providers and stuff. So the prices that we're looking at getting transparency on, and the prices that would be listed on the top 300, the list, what prices would those be? Or would it be a range of prices according to this bill, or which price are we going off of, basically?
Do you have
I guess my understanding of it from yesterday would have been that it would be what the total out-of-pocket would be without any provider involvement, but was...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe it's what the hospital is charging for it. The bill itself is silent on how that price is derived. All it says is that it needs to be clear, accessible, and online, and in plain language.
If I may, Mr. Chair. So that raises red flag. My spidey senses went up when you mentioned proprietary information. I wanted to kind of draw attention to the fact that if we're not clear about where the prices are coming from, and we're not clear about what it's going to be, or if it's going to be a range or anything like that, it kind of seems like we're just creating a lot more red tape for the hospitals who are already, I think we said 95% compliant. That's where my spidey senses are going up, I guess. Thank you.
Representative Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in support of this bill, if for no other reason than the requirement to post conspicuously in the hospital waiting area or admission area where every person who walks in that hospital can see the prices. I did a little bit of clicking around, not nearly as much as the previous representative's office assistant did, but I did a little bit of clicking around, and it takes some searching to find these prices as they're reported now. And the idea of being able to walk through the front door and while I'm arguing with them about my bill, being able to look up at the wall and see the published price that they say that a procedure costs. I'm sort of agnostic on the rest of the bill, but just for that line in the legislation, I'm going to support this bill.
Eileen, you had a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And with respect, Representative Proctor, I want to make clear the provision about the written information that needs to be posted. This is in subsection B on page 1 in line 34. The written information required pursuant to subsection A3. So that's 2 lines above it, 32 and 33. And it's written information about the patient's ability to request an estimate. It's not a listing of the prices. I just want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah, they did. All right, Representative Penn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate this discussion that's ongoing. Wanted to tap back about a discussion that I had in the office earlier this morning with one of the lobbyists representing some of the interests that we have here. And when we talk about that piece about compliancy, the words have meaning, and I just want to see if we had any type of fidelity on what exactly does that mean. Because when we talk about it, having issues and then being compliant with the federal law on it, that's after that 5% is showing that this is you've basically received the gig, notification of it, and you've rectified it, and then that's what gets reported. But what about the first time where there's an issue? Do we have that set of data where there are issues that have been raised and then they're mitigated? Because what we're talking about, the 5% compliancy, I believe, is after it's mitigated. Do we know what the stats are on the first end?
I do not. Right, Representative Bergquist.
Yes, just for the rest of the committee may remember who that was, but it seemed like one of the people that shared in committee the other day said that it would be a listing of the estimates of the top 300 procedures that they do in their hospital. Not that they have to cover everything that other hospitals do, but the things that they do. Is that correct?
That was my understanding
Okay.
as well, yes.
Thank you.
Right, further discussion. Representative Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am frankly very skeptical of the bill. I mean, the fact that you're duplicating federal regulations. The proponents. What bothers me about this is the proponents who were coming here for it. It was sort of predicated on the fact that 40% or more of the hospitals are simply ignoring the federal rules, and we need to put sort of a state rule in there to make sure to get their attention. But then just even today, where we have the one representative with her OA finding that she can find it on, is like 5% of the hospitals that she couldn't clearly find this price transparency information. Again, being a small business owner, you know, with, you know, a couple $1 million in sales as a manufacturer, the testimony of the small hospital, I think it was Eureka or something, where, you know, they had to spend $10,000 to get whatever, the software, the whatever, to do it. I mean, just the compliance cost on the federal level. And frankly, in Eureka, Kansas, the hospital even does 300 procedures. I mean, I can't hardly believe it, but, you know, I just, you know, as much as I like transparency, I'm glad there's a federal law. I'm just really troubled that this is overkill.
Right. Representative Haskins. Oh, wait. Well, Haskins was next anyway, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll be quick because my colleague just kind of summed up everything that I was about ready to say. And I always like to look at, you know, these bills have to have a purpose and a justification. And our proponents, we had two, one in person, or at least WebEx. That person lives in Florida. I would like to have received some information stating that this is a problem in the state of Kansas, that this does require this committee to take action, and I just feel like this bill just does not deliver on that. So I'll be voting no for this.
And Representative Howell.
Thank you, Chair. Just two things. One is, as I did some research today, I also looked up hospitals, and I found at least 3 in about a pretty short amount of time that did not appear to be compliant at all. They did not have anything listed on their websites whatsoever. Not all of them actually had the word hospital in their name, but down in the description they did. Which leads to, and I will say this, it appears the large hospitals are very clearly compliant, and the smaller ones are struggling. So, and the ones I have to look at are more like suburban type hospitals, is how I would personally describe them. But that kind of leads to my question, and which is perhaps a revisor question, but do we define the term hospital? And does that include physician-owned hospitals? I mean, there's quite a few different types of hospitals, or at least several that I can think of. So, and I'm not an expert in this field, so.
All right, Eileen, can you help us out with KSA 65-450?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the term is defined in Section 1, subsection B, line 13. Hospital means the same as defined in KSA 65-450, and if you give me 1 second, or more than 1 second. As I recall, it was like everybody.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty broad description after you get all the amendments in there.
As used in the section, the term hospital means a general hospital or a special hospital licensed under KSA 65-425 to 65-441. And 65-425, a general hospital means an establishment with an organized medical staff of physicians with permanent facilities that include inpatient beds with medical services, including physician services and continuous registered professional nursing for not less than 24 hours a day.
Not less than.
So I guess that means 24 hours a day.
It sounds like.
Yeah, to provide diagnosis and treatment for patients who have a variety of medical conditions. A special hospital means an establishment with an organized medical staff of physicians with permanent facilities that include inpatient beds. This is sounding really familiar. Including physician services and continuous registered professional nursing services for not less than 24 hours a day to provide diagnosis and treatment, et cetera. Medical care facility means a hospital, ambulatory surgery center, or recuperation center, except it doesn't include hospice or does not include a hospice that is certified to participate in the Medicaid program.
Sure. Representative, does that answer your question pretty well? Or, okay, very good. Further discussion? Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I like this bill, and I had I started to talk about an experience yesterday, but I thought maybe it would be good to go ahead and get it out because I had a son that had a incident where he slipped on ice and cracked his wrist. Went to a hospital. They gave him an X-ray, and they showed him that it was a cracked wrist, and they put him in a cast, and then told him, well, you might want to come back tomorrow or the next day and get a CAT scan just to confirm that it's cracked. And he did so, and I have a $5,000 deductible, and that CAT scan ended up, or the MRI, I guess, whatever it was, ended up costing me several $1,000s. And had he been told that, he would have never walked back in. I called him. I'm like, what in the hell did you do? And he said, well, they told me to come back, Dad. And it was because he had insurance, and there was a payer. And if he didn't have any insurance, I damn well bet you they wouldn't have told him to come back for an MRI. And so I like this bill because it would have informed someone like him who didn't know better that he would be making a mistake to come back to verify a cracked wrist for several $1,000s. So thank you. I will be supporting this bill. And thank you for bringing it.
My pleasure. All right. Representative Blue for a second bite at the apple.
Sorry. It made me think after Representative Howe's question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Madam Reviser, one thing that's been talked about a lot up here this year is rural emergency hospitals. Do we have a definition of that? And does that, I'm looking at CMS right now on their website. Do they qualify as a hospital under our definition, or are they a totally separate animal? And would they be considered underneath this bill? The question was, do they have inpatient beds? And do they have them? Not gonna get an answer? I don't know. Oh, well. Just thinking about that, so it doesn't matter. Thank you.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Very good. I would be open to a motion of some sort. Representative Penn.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for bringing this bill. I move that we pass out House Bill 2825 favorably for passage.
Second by Representative Proctor. Already kind of had discussion. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. No. Okay, the ayes have it. Very good. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. And opposed, same right hand. A different person, same right hand, so. Okay. The bill passes out favorably on a vote of 9-7. Okay, let's turn our attention to House Bill 2824. Eileen, to get us up to speed on, David, to get us up to speed on HB 2824. Take it away, David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, House Bill 2834 is the bill that would transfer the officers, employees, powers, duties, and functions that relate to state health care benefits program from the Division of the State Employee Health Benefits Plan of the Department of Administration to the Insurance Department and the Insurance Commissioner. It also provides that the Insurance Commissioner would be the chairperson of the Kansas State Employees Health Care Commission, and would also assume the management functions of such commission.
All right, questions for the reviser committee? Seeing none, very good. All right, I'll now open the hearing on, nope, not the hearing. Open discussion on HB 2834. Is there any? I would entertain a motion. Oh, Representative Underhill. Very good. Second by Representative Blue. Discussion. Oh, very good.
Sorry, didn't have my microphone on. One of the things that we heard in testimony was that separating the health plan and the self-insurance oversight boards didn't make sense. So what this amendment would do was remove that completely from the Department of Administration and keep it together with the insurance department, who already oversees some self-insurance pools, so it makes sense. And essentially just moves all of that over to the insurance department.
All right, Representative, I'm trying to get up to speed here, so hold on just a minute. There's a lot of strikeout going on, starting on page 3 and moving on all the way to page 6. What are we doing here?
David, do you want to talk about it?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, what the balloon would actually do here is there was Section 7 of the underlying bill was 7537-169 that struck some references to the state employee division of the state employee health benefits plan. That is now actually just going to be repealed because now, as this part of the transfer to the insurance department, so then that will actually be repealing the entirety of ERO 45 that was from 2020 and effectively moving both provisions to the insurance department. So that would no longer need to be in the bill. It's actually going to be repealed. If you see the repealer will reflect that. And then we are inserting a new Section 7. If you look at the balloon attachment towards the back there, this new Section 7 would be the one that functionally transfers the powers, duties, and functions of the state workers' compensation self-insurance fund would be imposed on the insurance department and commissioner of insurance. So that would be this new Section 7, page 1 of the attachment up to the first couple lines. And then we're then making some conforming amendments in the workers' compensation chapter 44. So then there were references, before ERO 45, this actually was with, KDHE, Secretary of Division of Healthcare Finance. The ERO couldn't amend the statute to change these, it just sort of superseded it. But now we can, by bill, amend these. So now it's updating where it said Secretary of Health and Environment, which really means Secretary of Administration at this point, to the insurance commissioner. So that's the remainder of the amendment there on the attachment there, all the strike throughs in red and the insertions in blue. So it's all of it would be going to the insurance department.
All right. The amendment is seconded by Representative Tarwater. Discussion on the amendment, committee. Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is something that I have looked at since 2017, and I think it's a good idea. So I was here when when we were reviewing, and you were on the you're on appropriations as well, sir. But we reviewed that efficiency study, and I have it pulled up on my computer here. And so it was mentioned yesterday by the director of the budget that these two do need to stay together, and I couldn't agree more. But it also, he mentioned the ERO was based off of this study. I do recall the ERO, and I have reviewed the ERO, and it did say that it was in this study. However, I do not see it anywhere in the study, and I searched for the word insurance, and in every single area, it didn't call for it to be moved to the administration. It did say it needed to be consolidated. And it also said that we also needed to do some big work on our self-insured pools, and maybe look at third party. And if you recall, I've made several motions and appropriations to have that done, and it keeps getting pulled out in conference. I believe that the insurance commissioner will look at this efficiency study, and they will save that $2 million a year by looking at this study. And I 100% support this amendment.
Right, very good. By the way, as far as the self-insured pools, don't have it out this year, but we can, down the road, I think we can expect to see something along those lines as well. Representative Blue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the end, I'm pretty sure I support this. I just want to double check with the carrier to see, one thing that was said on Monday was it would be a conflict because they are they oversee the regulators, so forth. I just want your opinion on, do you think that, or have you had further discussion?
Actually, I've been asked that quite a bit, and I think, yeah, my mic's still on. I think that having the insurance department oversee the health insurance plan actually not only adds efficiency, but with the regulatory knowledge and that sort of thing, they're going to be able to provide a better service for the employees. So I think it's actually a benefit, not a conflict.
Thank you. I completely agree. I just was curious if you've had more discussions, and I definitely agree putting underneath an elected official is, you know, there's consequences to things that you do. So, thank you.
Right, committee, further discussion on the amendment. Representative Essex.
I have a quick question. Was there any kind of fiscal note involved with this?
With the amendment?
I did not get a fiscal note with my amendment, and actually, we don't have one for the bill either.
Right, okay.
Because I believe we're just moving people
Okay.
and responsibilities.
Right, we may run into something real estate-wise if there is space requirements, but it was my understanding from the insurance department that they had the space. When they moved into the new building, exactly. Right, further discussion on the Underhill amendment? Seeing none? All those in favor of the Underhill amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? All right, very good. The amendment is on. Now, back on the bill, Representative Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll say again, fair disclosure, I'm not a member of the state employee health plan. I get my health care through the VA and through TRICARE. But in my other life, when I'm not here in the legislature at Wichita State, all of my fellow, all my colleagues there are all in this health plan. And the story that we heard from Representative Wassinger is just the tip of the iceberg on the issues that state employees have with this plan. I also have a ton of state employees in my district, especially corrections officers, and some of the stories I've heard from them are very disturbing about their interactions with the health plan. And so I think that putting this organization under an elected official who's accountable to the people of Kansas for the performance of administering this agency is a great idea and good for state employees across the state. And so I'm going to be supporting this bill.
Very good. Representative Underhill.
Another note that I wanted to make as far as moving the insurance over to the insurance department is the insurance department is already established and set up to field these complaints, do the research, do all that stuff, whereas administration doesn't necessarily have that. So it just makes more sense for the health insurance to be under a more properly staffed and more capable organization.
Very good. Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that I just wanted to make a comment that we've seen last year and this year over and over and over again how our insurance commissioner has gone out of her way to cut positions, be more efficient, and save state dollars. And I think if you put her up against any other department that we have up here, it's night and day. And my guess is she can take this bureaucracy, you know what I'm saying?
That word.
That big thing, and make it a little thing. And I think that there's not anyone better around here that can save dollars. And I'm looking forward to a few years down the road to see how well she's done. Thank you.
Right, Representative Haskins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And colleagues, I just want to bring to the attention again that this bill is going to last longer than any current commissioner of insurance. I would agree with the assessment that the presentations that she's delivered to us are exceptional, and she has definitely saved money for the state of Kansas. However, this bill will last longer than any commissioner that's currently in place. So I'm not sure who to ask this question, and so maybe someone can give some insight. One thing that I'm not certain about is if this is a bill about efficiency, what role did the Department of Administration play in crafting this bill? I mean, do we have evidence of this, that they're inefficient? Is it just, I'm just curious, what role did they play in developing this bill? Does anyone have the answer? I'm not sure.
I don't have Representative Penn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank you for the question, Representative. I think from the testimony that we heard, and go back and take a look at the reel of the tape, we heard, oh, I'm sorry, video, whatever we have. Yeah, what's the tape? VHS. The tail of the tape. We heard from the Secretary of Administration state that this program has been under his guidance and his fiefdom, both in this title and in his previous title. And there were a number of folk who came up and testified that there were issues, just as you heard from the Representative Proctor as well. So that there are issues out there that they are having, and to your question, what do they have hand in crafting this bill? I think they had a hand in crafting the situation that this bill is addressing. And it's been under that particular individual's purview for time immemorial. So I think that this is an opportunity for us to actually peel back the layers of the onion and actually get the citizens of Kansas some of the relief that they need. I will be in support of this.
Haskins, you still have the floor.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for the response on that. It's just, I did recall the proponents. I found that the information that they provided were specific and were a cause for us to have a hearing. But once again, this bill is not a reflection of what's going to happen currently. It's going to be a reflection of what happens 10, 20 years from now. And there was no quantitative data. There was nothing to support. We just got a few stories. And I think we should have received more information before we passed this. However, like I said, this afternoon, I can read the room. I would just encourage us to consider that the bill is going to be here a lot longer than any current administration or any current elected official.
That is a valid point, and I think it's something that we need to keep in mind always when we're crafting legislation. Yes, Representative Penn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Representative, I really appreciate your comments and it's not taken lightly what your perspective is. I do want to point the committee to review the packet, and something that I found outstanding, usually to Representative Essex's question, was there a fiscal note? I found it kind of curious that the same individual that is supposed to supply us a fiscal note was also the same individual on the testimony for opponency. Why was there no fiscal note? It goes to my point. If you got the fox watching the hen house, what kind of answers are we going to get and uncover for these people?
All right, Representative Bergquist.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The representative's comments about who's been doing it and who might be doing it in perpetuity or in the far future, I think that's a really good point. And I think the good point that I've taken from it is that not only is it who or how it's been done recently or even now, but how it can be done best in the future, not with this person or this commissioner of insurance or this administration, but how we set good policy for the future and who's best suited for that particular thing. And that's why I'm in favor of the bill. Thank you.
Representative Proctor.
For a second time, I appreciate it, Mr. Chair. I would just, I also take the previous representative's concerns to heart. I would just say that the next insurance commissioner, whoever that is, the voters will be voting for that person with the understanding that they will also have responsibility for the state employee health plan. I imagine that whoever's campaigning for that position will be, communicating to voters their qualifications to administer that plan. And so I think that in the future, we can expect the people will be even more qualified as insurance commissioner to do this job, because the voters will know that they're going to be required to administer the state employee health plan. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Valid point. And I would also probably remind the committee that the state employee health plan was moved to the Department of Administration 4 years ago. It wasn't the right move, it turns out, in some opinions, maybe not everyone, I get it, but arguably it wasn't the right place to put it. If the insurance department is also not the right place to put it, maybe we'll stand it up all by itself 4 years down the road. But let's try to fix the situation. And as with any legislation, we can always change it if it doesn't work out the way that we're hoping that it works out.
The point of information, since you brought it up, where was it before it got moved?
KDHE.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Representative Wagner.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly think this has some potential. My sort of concern is, we're working with a lot of just anecdotal evidence. Does not, the state, the SEHP or the Department of Administration, do they ever do any customer satisfaction surveys? Is there not some metric that they work with, like how many people are satisfied with the whole plans versus not? And then the comparison question would be, if you transfer the administration to the Department of Insurance, 5 years from now, would that be, more or less? And then also, I just don't know if they can quantify what actually is the current cost of administrating the health insurance part of our benefit package. Do they have, again, from the standpoint of if it's $5 million to do the whole thing currently, and we find out in the Department of Insurance it costs $10 million, annually, just there's just no efficiency, or it's just worse. Because again, this has been a little bit, if it was kicked from KDHE over to Department of Administration, going to insurance, where the natural fit would be customer satisfaction and cost would be sort of my quantitative metrics.
Those are perfectly valid. As to whether or not D of A does a customer satisfaction survey, I have no idea. It certainly wasn't presented as testimony in the hearing for this bill. You would think if there was one, it would have been, but I can't speak to that. Right, further discussion, committee. Seeing none. All right, all those in favor of passing HB 28, whatever we're on, 2834 out as amended, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. No. Okay, well, the ayes clearly had it on that one. That wasn't close. All right, that HB 2834 passes out favorably as amended. All right, let's get on with the business of the day, HB 2824. And which revisor is going to get us up to speed on 2824? It's been a spell on this one. Take it away, David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2824 would mandate that insurance coverage for pediatric acute onset neuropsychiatric syndrome, PANS, and pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorders associated with streptococcal infections, PANDAS, be provided beginning January 1 of 2025. The bill also provides that the coverage of PANS and PANDAS in the state health care benefits program for plan year 2023, and the report on such coverage from the Kansas State Employees Health Care Commission that are pursuant to KSA 756525 would be deemed to satisfy the test track provisions in law for the coverage of PANS and PANDAS that would be required by House Bill 2824. You might remember there was a bill 2110 from 2022 that had that go through the test track through the state employee health plan for coverage year 23. That report was issued March 1st of this year. I believe there's a copy of that in the report. And then what the bill also did on that underlying statute from 2110, it actually has said, following receipt of the report, that the legislature may consider whether or not to require that coverage starting on and after July 1, 2025. This bill actually then strikes that July and makes it January 1, 2025 to conform with new section 1 there to be a January 1, 2025 start.
Right. Committee, questions for David? Fire away. Representative Oropeza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there a reason why this is done yearly?
Yearly, I mean, if
Like, why is it okay yearly? Like, is there a reason that we revisit this yearly?
well, the original bill was for sort of the pilot, that's part of the test track, is that if there's a new, an insurance mandate before it goes out to the broader insurance market, it goes through the state employee health plan to kind of gather that actual experience data and costs and stuff, and then have that report issued to the legislature. If this bill would take effect, it would not be an annual, it would just be going forward. It would not be revisited annually. It would be a mandate 25 and forward, so.
Oh, 25 and forward. And then how long has this been studied for?
The plan, the state employee plan was for plan year 2023, and then the report was issued then March of this year. So we have that 1 year of state employee data.
Thank you.
All right, Representative Bergquist.
We've had informational hearings in health over the last couple, 3 years. At least 2 informational hearings that were just to get us acquainted and get that pilot program started. Yeah.
Further question? Oh, Representative Wagoner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned that there is a report from the preliminary work. I don't see it in our file. Is it on the S drive, or am I just missing something?
I mean, yeah, I believe Carol emailed that out earlier. It was a report from the Kansas State Employees Healthcare Commission. Yeah, so it'd be either check email or it should be in the S drive, I guess.
You say 11:30? Okay. Take a look.
We wanted to give other people an advantage.
Oh.
Representative Wagoner, further question?
I still don't see it. I mean, of course, I was a new person appointed to the committee just this year. Maybe I'm not on your list. But you said it was 11:34 this morning? Okay.
You asked for it, mister.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, committee, further questions for the reviser? All right, David, I think you explained it so clearly.
Well, I would like also to point out, when you do have these insurance mandates, it does ERISA plans and those self-insured plans, it does not cover. That's under federal law. Obviously, it did. So I always kind of mention that when we have mandate bills, but yeah.
Exactly. All right. Very good. Thank you, David. All right. I'll open proponent testimony. First off, I have Mason, and I'm not sure how to say your last name. He's on WebEx, however. So let's see if we can pull Mason up and have him tell me how to say his last name. Calling Mason.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Now I can, absolutely, good.
Okay, amazing. My last name is Lowe.
Welcome to committee, Mason.
Hi. Okay. I'm good to go ahead, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Hello everybody. Again, my name is Mason. So, Kodomo no Tominai is a saying that my doctor, Dr. Kobayashi, would say occasionally during our visits, and it means for the sake of the children. And as I speak, I would like you guys to remember this phrase. So, again, my name is Mason Lowe. I'm from Wellington. I'm 22 years old, and I'm graduating with honors from Oklahoma State in May with a degree in zoology. I'm 22 years old. I'm the first person in my entire family to graduate college, and in 2 years, I'll be the first person to ever get my master's degree. I have 4 Ride scholarships to my undergrad and graduate programs. I'm a National Merit Scholar, I'm a Kansas Governor Scholar, and I serve as the Vice President of the largest org on my college campus. I'm nearly to the publication process of a research paper concerning nutritional ecology of carnivorous plants, and my master's thesis will consist of research on isopod defense mechanisms. And I'm telling you all of this to illustrate the point that despite my accomplishments, I am 22 years old, and sometimes I still can't handle getting my hands dirty. I sometimes can't help but count everything I see in multiples of 4 until my head hurts, and sometimes my face will contort into angles that make my friends think I'm having a stroke. I want to stress that this is all very mild compared to how it once was. When I was 11, I couldn't stop myself from throwing back my head so hard it would bruise my neck, and when I was 7, I had vocal tics so bad that my elementary school music teacher made me cover my mouth or leave the classroom. For my entire life, I've never been able to focus on exams for very long, whether it's someone clicking their pen too loud, breathing in a funny way, or the clock ticking too loud. It becomes too much, and I find myself giving up and accepting whatever grade I've earned from taking half of the exam. And this is because the biggest challenge I've ever faced that will never go away is my disease, pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorder associated with Streptococcus bacteria, also known as PANDAS. Its symptoms include tics, anxiety, OCD, sleep issues, and a host of other problems. And as I alluded to before, my worst symptoms were tics and OCD. In fact, my OCD was so debilitating that for years I could not function unless I did everything in groups of 4. If I tapped on anything with my hands, it was 4 steps. The TV and radio volumes always had to be at multiples of 4. And I even had to count the syllables in my sentences and add words until they added up to a multiple of 4. My tics were also very debilitating at one point, as I mentioned earlier. In elementary school, I had so many tics that my peers were actually reluctant to befriend me. I still suffer from some tics, which are mostly facial contortions due to long-term damage from being misdiagnosed with various other disorders and mistreated. My entire childhood consisted of visits to doctors all over Kansas, and none had the correct answer. Even at KU Med in Kansas City, talking with some of the highest respected doctors in the country still resulted in dead ends and frustration. And I'm sure you all can imagine the feeling of hopelessness that seeps in when even the best of the best are at a loss. In another instance, I can vividly recall a moment when a doctor suggested in my presence that I may simply be possessed and should seek out God. I was 6 years old. I didn't receive the correct diagnosis of PANDAS until I was nearly 15. I need everyone in the room to understand that my entire struggle with this disease comes from a very simple lack of awareness that the disease existed in the 2000s and 2010s. However, in 2024, we have a much better understanding of this disease and awareness day for it, and most importantly, we've got effective treatment. I was lucky enough to receive one of these treatment options as a participant of a study on intravenous immunoglobulin, known as IVIG, in Omaha during my sophomore year of high school. This treatment was life-changing and dramatically helped my condition, alleviating the large majority of my severe tics and lowering my OCD symptoms to an extremely manageable degree. It consisted of receiving several rounds of IVIG, which is essentially a pool of LGG antibodies in plasma from healthy individuals over a span of about 6 months. So to put it bluntly, this boiled down to sitting in a room for 6 hours with an IV in my arm every 3 weeks for 6 months. And I honestly believe that that simple series of transfusions is the whole reason why I'm even able to speak to you all today. I come to you all with the hope that individuals in Kansas may be able to receive this treatment without having to carry the financial burden of doing so. And while I was fortunate enough to be a part of this study, this is certainly not the case for the vast majority of kids with this condition in Kansas. In light of that, I'm asking you all to vote yes on House Bill 2824. Although I believe that this disease has taught me the real meaning of perseverance by forcing me to work my way through whatever is put in front of me, I would absolutely not want anyone to have to walk the same path that has forced me down. And though I've gone far beyond what is expected of me to reach all of these achievements that I've just described, I don't think any other children in Kansas suffering from this disease should have to persevere as much as I've had to. I want to absolutely stress that this struggle is so much more than simply a bad spot in my childhood. This disease has tried to take nearly everything from my family and myself. At its worst, it's all-consuming all day long. By voting for this bill, you're voting to ensure that thousands of kids in our great state are able to thrive despite this disease. Before I close, I'd like you all to watch a before and after video that we prepared of some kids fortunate enough to receive IVIG.
All right. How do we get that going? Mason, have you sent that in to us? Or how are we going to play that?
Oh,
Oh, yeah, if you can share your screen, that would work.
give me just a second. I'm sorry.
Sure, absolutely. No, take your time. You're fine. We could absolutely do that. Mason, you want to kind of hang loose for a few minutes? We'll have another person testifying, and you can kind of get that squared away so we can watch the video.
I've actually got the video right here. Just give me 15 seconds.
Oh, okay, 15 seconds. Let's go. That sounds good to me.
Okay. Share screen.
Yeah, one more time.
Um, um, um,
Okay, we've got audio. I don't have video yet.
I am so sorry, committee. I am not sure. Let me.
That is no problem, Mason. Take your time. We have time. I'm going to bring another speaker.
Can you guys see this?
Oh, you've done it, Mason. Perfect.
I am so terrible with this. I am sorry.
No, it's working now.
All right, here's the video.
Could you run up to the mic?
So 9 years old after he developed this and before we knew what we were dealing with. He went catatonic. This is him after having IVIG treatments. He's had them twice. He's now 11 and he was explaining a science experiment and doing much, much better.
Mason, thank you very much for getting that video up for us. That was eye-opening. Yeah, no doubt about it.
Thank you, committee. And again, I am sorry for the technical issues. Will members of any family that are in that video that are present, please stand?
Yep, I think the entire front row is standing up right now.
I would like the committee to vote for the sake of the kids, as I mentioned, for the sake of these kids. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here, or, well, being there. Any questions for Mason Lowe? Yes, Representative Bergquist.
Yes, Mason, if you wouldn't mind taking a question or two.
Yes.
Do you, in your experience, your life experience now, do you suspect there's a lot of children and young people that are not diagnosed yet, that are simply waiting for the technology to catch up and the information to catch up?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Like I'm saying, there's awareness of this disease is only just now catching up to what doctors have, potentially wondered for years. I mean, there are PANDAS networks that estimate 1 to 2% of kids in general may have this disease. Yes, I absolutely believe there are many people who haven't been diagnosed yet.
Thank you.
All right, Representative Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say I've been between the Insurance Committee and I'm not anymore, but I used to be on Health and Human Services Committee. And so, and just about the whole time I've been, over 5 years now, I've been in the legislature, I've been hearing about this, and I'd never heard of it before. So I really do appreciate you being willing to talk about it, and all the other people who have testified and who've shared their stories. And I just want to say thanks for being willing to talk about it.
Of course, I'm happy, and I'm sure everyone else here is happy to be representatives of people struggling with this disease.
All right, further questions for Mason? Seeing none. Thank you for appearing before us today, Mason.
Thank you all.
Excellent work. All right, next up I have Michaela Widman. Did I get that wrong?
I'm Dr. Tara Richardson. I'm a general psychiatrist from the Wichita area and the mother of a child with PANS as well, who's over here. And I've spoken a couple of times now. So we were anticipating a little different order. So I had kind of written a summary of what PANS is about. Some of you may have heard it before, so if you want to cut me off, feel free. But PANS, to summarize, is Pediatric Acute Onset Neuropsychiatric Syndrome. PANDAS is a subset of that when it's due to streptococcal infection specifically. So that was discovered first. The PANS diagnosis came later, but a lot of times they're used interchangeably. And to your question, yes, there are a ton of doctors who don't know about it. I did not learn about this really in medical school or psych residency. I learned about it when my daughter got sick when she was 5 and nothing else made sense. So you'll hear a little bit more about that. I had sent in some slides. Do we have those? Yes, yes, absolutely. So just so everybody knows what the diagnostic criteria are, basically there's an abrupt or acute onset. Typically it's described as lightning-like of obsessive compulsive disorder or severely restricted food intake. So obsessive compulsive disorder is when you have unwanted intrusive thoughts that come over and over and over, and then the compulsions are designed to make those thoughts go away. So maybe it's hand washing, maybe it's something else, some kind of habit. And so that's very repetitive. There's a lot to it, more to it than the general public understands. And then you have to have, along with that, 2 symptoms in 7 other categories that are listed below. And so that can look a lot of different things. There's no one test that will tell you whether PANS or PANDAS exists. Unfortunately, you have to recognize this cluster of symptoms, which is why it's so, frequently misdiagnosed. They used to think that it was only a childhood illness. They've since discovered that adults can get it as well. So it's estimated that maybe 1 in 200 children have PANS or PANDAS. There's some statistics about who is typically diagnosed. The true prevalence is probably really unknown because a lot of children are misdiagnosed. This is frequently missed. Very few doctors, and I mean, a lot of psychiatrists don't even know about it or how to adequately treat. So these children are routed into mental health care when they need more medical care. This is really considered a medical condition that has physical symptoms, but also psychiatric symptoms since it affects the brain. So what happens, this is an example of how it was discovered. It was discovered in 1998 by Dr. Susan Sweeto. She works for she has retired, but worked for the National Institute of Mental Health. She noticed this symptom, or this cluster of symptoms in children who had been infected with strep. And so basically what happens is there's a misdirected immune response where instead of attacking the bacteria, your body attacks its host tissue. So you have this cluster of symptoms specifically when the brain is affected. The affected part is thought to be the basal ganglia. So the basal ganglia is involved in executive function, which means planning out and carrying out tasks. It's involved in reward processes. It's involved in motor control, and it's also involved in emotions. So that's why you have this psychiatric looking presentation when there's inflammation or problems there. We can go through these a little quickly, but you do have them in front of you. We talked about the obsessive compulsive disorder, about the tics or abnormal movements that can occur. Sometimes that looks like handwriting changes. There can be a lot of emotionality and mood dysregulation involved. Sometimes there's changes to senses, so they're very sensitive to touch, and sometimes their speech is affected so that they will go through what looks like really, baby talk, tantrums, things that are not age appropriate. And here's some more of these. Food restrictions, sometimes this goes so far as refusing to eat at all, which can look similar to anorexia. Sometimes these kids will require, hospitalization for this or feeding tubes. Severe anxiety, a lot of times there's severe separation anxiety to where school attendance can be a problem. We've talked about some of the other things. Learning difficulties, obviously if your brain is going through all these problems, it's hard to pay attention and retain information, so school difficulty. Nighttime is particularly difficult because of the separation anxiety away from parents. They don't want to sleep by themselves, but also difficulty with nightmares. It's a really rough time. A lot of times there's urinary symptoms as well, where it almost looks like they have a urinary infection. Sometimes there can be more extreme things such as hallucinations. That's a little more rare. Here's just an example of a child who got sick, their handwriting before and then during what we call a flare or an episode of this. So you can see that motor control and how abnormal that is. Can be, yeah. So this was my daughter when she got sick. My daughter's name is Brielle. She was 5. This is a couple of months before she got sick at the start of kindergarten. I think next is a video. I don't know if you're able to pause it before we go on, but this is a video of her in the hospital. What happened with her, she had a very classic case where literally overnight, Tuesday she was fine. Wednesday morning she woke up and had the worst case of obsessive compulsive disorder I've ever seen as a psychiatrist. So she believed that she had swallowed worms, eggshells, hair, all sorts of things, and that because of that, it was going to kill her. So she was absolutely convinced of this. And the only thing that made her feel better was checking with me for reassurance. So probably hundreds of times per day would ask me, Mommy, am I okay? Did I swallow something? She would check her mouth for hair repeatedly. School was a problem when she loved school. And then maybe 1 or 2 days later, she started to believe all food was contaminated, so she refused to eat or drink anything to the point of dehydration because she thought it was going to kill her. She thought everything was going to kill her. She started to have aggression that was unlike her, severe separation anxiety. It was a mess. We didn't know what was going on. But I knew as a psychiatrist, obsessive compulsive disorder does not develop this way. So it was very abnormal. In this video, you can see a couple of things that are interesting. You can see her tics, so she'll have some mouth tics that are abnormal. This was not her baseline speech. You'll see that she is speaking much younger than she was at the time, kind of repetitive. And then, I don't mean to be goading in this video, but I was also trying to get her symptoms on video. I offer her some water, and you can see her response and how scared she is of that. I don't know why the sound isn't working, but you can tell when I offer her the water. It's terrible. And so we can go ahead and go on. She was sick this first episode probably for about 6 months before I felt like I had my daughter back. The majority of kids, there's a relapsing, remitting quality to this, so it's episodic. There is 22% that it gets hit and just gets worse. Some kids do have a single episode. So you can have these episodic flares, and the trigger can be different each time. It's not always strep. Hers was just a common cold virus, the best we could tell, and we don't always know. Sometimes it's missed. The problem is, the longer this goes untreated, the more damage is done with that episode, but also over time when you have repeated episodes. If you don't have the optimal treatment, you can really have long-term damage to the brain. So the treatment is really, number one, if there's any source of infection, you want to remove that, so antibiotics if it's bacterial. And then the next part is really working on the immune system, so anti-inflammatories, things like NSAIDs or ibuprofen, steroids, and then of course IVIG, which is why we're here today. And then psychiatric medications are really, they offer some symptomatic relief, but they do not treat the underlying disorder. So you wouldn't expect to get better with psychiatric medications by themselves. Here is another example of a child, and they're drawing during a flare and then after IVIG treatment. So you can see the difference there. And so I think in summary, you know, of course we need increased awareness, but today we're really focusing on treatment and making sure kids have access to that, because a lot of times they don't. And if they do, their parents have been paying out of pocket and it's insanely expensive. And so we're, you know, really appreciative of you listening to us today and considering this. And I know we have some other speakers as well. Are there any questions?
All right, any questions for Dr. Richardson? Representative Bergquist. Oh, I'll get you too.
Yes, what kind of percentage after diagnosis, what kind of percentage have the ones that have been able to get the treatments, how effective have they been?
You know, I don't know. I know it's considered very effective for IVIG. I don't have an exact percentage for you. Part of the issue has been there's not a lot of places for kids to get IVIG around here. I know that one place I spoke to, there's a specialty center down in Arizona, and so the hardest cases get referred there, and really only 20% of their most severe cases even get IVIG. As a psychiatrist, it's not something that I have access to, so that would have to go to a pediatric neurologist to even order. So I don't know that I have a good answer for you. Some of these other people may.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Proctor.
So you say, you said in your presentation that 1 in 200 kids get this. So is that diagnosed, or is that the number of kids that we think based on kind of the presentation probably or actually?
Yeah, that's through the National Institute of Mental Health and Sue Sweeto, who's done the actual academic studies. That's their best estimate. I don't think that, it may be higher than that, honestly. Here in Kansas, if you were to look at the diagnosis, I don't think that it would show because it gets misdiagnosed so frequently.
Then what percentage of those kids are going to need the most aggressive treatment?
It would be considered a small percentage because there's mild, moderate, severe. So like I said, most severe children would get referred to that specialty center. And even at the specialty center, they use IVIG on about 20% of their kids. So 20% of the most severe cases. This is not a huge number that we're talking about. And they can let you know a little bit more on the report that's exactly what that was looking at. How often is this going to be ordered and what's the cost going to be?
I don't want to be caught on camera doing public math. So if you guys could break out a calculator for me and tell me about how many kids in the state of Kansas would, if we were correctly diagnosing all these, how many kids in the state of Kansas are going to require that most expensive treatment? That would be very helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Wagoner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very much appreciate your presentation. It's very, very helpful. I guess my question, one or two questions. So I'm going through this handout that we got that dealt with the state of Kansas sort of study on it. And so how is this still considered, I mean, it's considered kind of experimental? I mean, the medical societies, what? I mean, they're looking at data and they're not seeing this You know, how does that work?
So it is a relatively new diagnosis in terms of things. Like I said, I graduated from residency in 2017, and I did not learn about this in residency. Now, the Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, they do have treatment guidelines that have been established for all of this, and they recommend IVIG. It's been, I don't know why it's so controversial. I think it's less controversial in other places. I think that because it's not something we have had a lot of exposure and learned about as doctors, it's just not, it's not well understood yet. I do think that this is improving. I've seen an improvement even since she got sick in 2019. I know that local neurologists are using it a lot more.
If I could, is it, I mean, in Europe, is this diagnosed a lot, or is this sort of an American thing, or what?
Oh, no, it's worldwide. There's conferences with researchers worldwide who present, so it's well established other places. I don't know that I could tell you clinically what they're doing.
Just one final question. So one thing I'm noticing, kind of an oddity in the state of Kansas, ended up having like 68 claims in their sort of experimental period, but it only cost like about $82,000, and they were even projecting $140,000 in 2024 and $210,000 in 2025, which on the preliminary of the study, when they first made the estimates, even the lowest estimate was $210,000. So are treatments getting less expensive, or why would our cost be so low, given having 60+ kids under treatment?
I know that I'm the best person to answer that for you. Yeah.
Right, I believe the Siegel report is on deck, so by golly, we'll be able to discuss that in just a moment. Stop reading ahead. Further questions, committee? Seeing none. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, next up, the person who's already been foreshadowed, Michaela Widman. Welcome to committee.
Thank you. Thank you for meeting with us today, dear Chairman and members of the House Insurance Committee. Again, I'm Michaela Widman. I'm a mother of 6 in Overland Park, and 2 of my children had severe, debilitating, and life-threatening autoimmune encephalomyelitis, which is the highest level of severity. In fact, my son was the second most severe case our doctor had ever seen, and my daughter was the most severe case. And this was in 2017 when they were diagnosed. But because of various medical treatments, including plasmapheresis, rituximab, and IVIG, they are thankfully at 99% remission now. So today I will briefly summarize the Kansas State Employees Healthcare Commission report on insurance coverage for the PANS and PANDAS pilot. The 2022 House Bill 2110 required that the state employee health plan implement a pilot program providing coverage for diagnosis and prescribed treatment of PANS and PANDAS. Coverage was subject to applicable deductibles, copays, and coinsurance requirements of the members, and coverage became available on January 1st, 2023. The pilot program was ultimately established to help children suffering from PANS and PANDAS to get appropriate and much-needed medical care covered. So during the plan year 2023, the state employee health plan had 68 submitted claims for PANS and PANDAS. 26 of these members incurred claims for PANS, and 47 incurred claims for PANDAS. Some actually incurred claims for both PANS and PANDAS, meaning that there would be other infections involved. Incurred claims for all members totaled $82,159 and allowed charges and coinsurance of that amount. And the state employee health plan paid $75,386 with the balance paid by the members through deductible and/or coinsurance. According to the report, the estimated cost of coverage was less than 0.1% of the 2021 total projected plan cost, so the cost of coverage of PANS and PANDAS in the pilot program in particular had minimal impact. And we were discussing before that it is likely to be less because many of the tests that were included were of standard workup. And you were asking about the cost being so low, and we actually talked about that last week. We were kind of confused about that at first too, but it appears that people were catching it early, and that is the big difference maker. So that's what our guess is. Without being able to look at the cases themselves, I wouldn't know any more details about it, but that's a very good question. We had the same one. So even though, I just explained the money, the cost, but the benefits to the patients and the families were life-saving and life-changing, as you could see in the videos earlier. You can't put, a value on the life and the quality of life of these kids and all kids who have recovered from these treatments. And I can personally share with you that before treatment, our son and daughter were debilitated. My son Kai, he was the one in the video that was turning over furniture. He was taking out his rage on the furniture because he didn't want to take it out on the family. He was only able to function a small fraction of the time for many years because he went undiagnosed. And my daughter Brielle, she was unable to function at all. She's the one that was having the seizure in the beginning of the videos. Since treatment, Kai has graduated from high school and later KU with a 4.0 in computer science. He's an avid disc golf player, works out several times a week, knows how to swing dance, as you saw, has lots of friends, and has secured a career as a software engineer in North Kansas City. Brielle, since treatment, first became able to walk, speak, and eat again, and she has regained her cognitive losses and many other abilities. She's now sophomore at Blue Valley Southwest. She's also a 4.0 student, plays the piano, plays tennis, babysits, hangs out with friends, and is striving to go to college to become a nurse or a nutritionist. And she's with me today. Here, she's 16. So the state employee health plan has continued the pilot program coverage of PANS and PANDAS for pilot year 2024. If the benefit were to be expanded to all health plans in the state, members and more providers would become aware of the eligibility for this coverage for PANS and PANDAS, and therefore would be expected that more claims would be incurred in future years. But this is a good thing because left untreated, as it was mentioned before, the costs of these illnesses are outrageously greater than if treated. The report says that early diagnosis and treatment are ideal, but better said, they are crucial. Early versus later intervention tremendously impacts the quality of life and prognosis of these pediatric patients, and proportionally, it impacts the costs to families and the state. When a child experiences an onset of a neuroimmune disorder, such as PANS, PANDAS, or autoimmune encephalitis, at first, it is like a small but significant fire that needs to be put out. It is scary, but it is relatively easy to control and overcome if you have the right knowledge and tools, if doctors have the right knowledge and tools. However, if that child's neuroimmune illness is left untreated, it will grow and spread through their body like a wildfire, affecting more body systems more deeply, creating complexities that seem impossible to figure out and treat. The expenses then can become a massive burden to the families and the state. All to say, early diagnosis and treatment will greatly reduce the incidence of chronic and high-cost conditions which develop from untreated or delayed treatment of neuroimmune disorders. Thank you again for letting us come speak today.
Excellent. Committee, questions for Ms. Widman?
I may need help with questions.
Representative Bergquist.
Do the doctors say that the results of not getting an early diagnosis can lead to any psychiatric manifestations for life, or do we know that yet?
That's a good question. What I have learned over the years is that if untreated for long enough, it can be seemingly permanent. There have been some experiments with stem cells for kids like that. And in fact, our son was told by his most recent doctor that he was a good candidate for stem cell therapy. But that would not be anything in the insurance coverage. That would be out of pocket for parents.
All right, committee, further questions? Representative Wagoner.
Yes, no, thank you very much for making the presentation and such. I guess I'm just wanted to maybe even share with you and the committee. I mean, you basically had for the state of Kansas health group, they estimated like 12,000 kids were in the sort of 3 to 14 age group, of which you had 68 claims for this, which if your total population, state of Kansas, if you go by public schools, like 450,000 kids in public schools, basically, I mean, just pretend that that's your number, that you're basically going to take it times 40, which would give me an estimate of around 2,800, cases or whatever, claims in the course of a year. And again, based on the experience of $210,000 for the 68 claims, even you take that times 40, and I'm only getting a cost of 8.4 million. I think I ran the math right. It could be 84 million, but it's 40 times 210,000. I don't even have a cell phone with me. I'm doing this longhand to get the math. But anyway, but again, I don't know. This just seems like very doable. Yeah.
Right. Further questions or math problems?
No math problems.
Seeing none, all right. Thank you for being here. Now we have one other proponent testimony, Carrie Lowe. I'm assuming it's pronounced the same way as Mason's last name, just a hunch. I have that listed as written only, is it okay? So committee, be sure to read that testimony when you get the opportunity. I have no one else listed as a proponent. If anyone would like to speak as a proponent, this would be a wonderful time to do so. All right, seeing none, I'll close proponent testimony. I have no neutral testimony, but if anyone feels strongly neutral and would like to testify to that effect, this would be a great opportunity. All right, I'll close neutral testimony. Opponents, I have William Wilk, Senior Director of Government Affairs from the Kansas Chamber, and that's written only. So committee, when you get a chance to read that, do so. And the only in-person opponent that I have listed is Andrew Weens, Executive Director of Kansas Employees for Affordable Health Care. Welcome to committee, Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's always got to be one. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Weens, and I'm representing Kansas Employers for Affordable Health Care. And we are opposed to HB 2824, and I'll tell you why. I do want to start by saying this is really serious, and I think the proponents did a wonderful job testifying today. I have 3 kids, and I can't imagine this happening to any of them. So with that, I would like to point your attention to some of the consequences that passing this bill could have. So I think the intention behind the bill is certainly noble, but mandating coverage regardless of what condition we're talking about inevitably leads to increased costs for employer-sponsored health coverage. Additionally, imposing mandates is likely to result in higher premiums for employees, and mandating coverage takes away employer choice and flexibility in designing plans that are best suited to meet the needs of their workforce. So I will say it may be a good idea to provide coverage for PANS and PANDA, but I don't think it's a great idea to mandate it. So with that, I know time is running late, but just would say in conclusion, even if this particular mandate may not be as substantial as others proposed or implemented in the past, and we, as a legislature, we've implemented many mandates in the past, I think the steady drip, drip, drip of additional cost hikes takes its toll on employer-based health benefits over time. So with that in mind, I'm happy to stand for questions.
Right, questions for Mr. Weens? Yes, Representative Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering, and I don't know if you know this or not, but how many other conditions are mandated by statute? Do you know?
Thank you, Representative. Mr. Chairman, I don't know how many. I know there's a lot, and I was actually looking on my phone a little bit before providing testimony, and I don't know if research or the revisers would have that number handy, but there's been quite a few passed over the decades.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Bergquist.
And that's not even recorded because I wasn't on the mic.
Representative, I understand very well what you're going through there. All right, further questions? Representative Wagoner.
Thank you, Andrew. Very interesting. I do wonder, are most things in health insurance plans aren't exactly mandated by the state exactly, are they? Or is it not? I guess I just wonder what the medical societies, is it not based on what the medical societies say? Or is everything from a state statute as to what's covered by health insurance plans? I mean, again, this is a amateur's question, but I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
Which.
Thanks, Representative. Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think there's federal mandates and there's state mandates, both. So it kind of depends, but there's both.
You get covered unless it's actually mandated by some regulation?
No, not necessarily. I mean, insurance plans can cover things that aren't mandated to be covered as well, if that makes sense. And a lot of plans do it. All plans cover things that are not mandated. Yeah.
Representative Bergquist, did you remember your question?
I think I do.
Okay, good.
And the treatment and the coverage and the treatment being covered in the state plan, does that spread across the entire pool of that same age group, or does that spread the cost, does it spread across the entire pool?
Thank you, Representative, Mr. Chairman. I don't know that I know the specific answer to that question, but I think you all are aware that there are statutes, KSA 40-2248 and following, that require that test track and the impact report, as well as the cost-benefit analysis, and I think that was referenced earlier when the revisor was explaining the bill. And this bill says that the PANS Pandas insurance coverage pilot program that was operated by the state employee health plan shall be deemed to satisfy the impact report requirements. And I think, I mean, this is probably stating the obvious, but anytime state employee health plan pays for something, that's obviously funded by the taxpayers, and it goes to the benefit of the employees that are on the health plan. So I know that probably didn't answer your specific question, but hopefully it was helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this you may not be the right person to answer this, but do we know, is there an absolute diagnosis to this? Is there a test to take that says, yes, you're positive for this?
Yeah, thanks, Representative and Mr. Chairman. I do not know the answer to that. I think as some of the proponents discussed, it's a more recent, I guess, illness or malady that, was not known about until very recently. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you can, like you could test for strep, with a swab and then send it in to get cultured. I don't think there's anything that's that easy to test for this, but I'm probably not the best person to answer that.
Representative Oropeza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Does the state program currently cover fibromyalgia?
Don't know the answer to that, Representative.
Okay. Can I have another question? Sure. Does the state employee insurance currently cover syndromes in regards to like rheumatoid arthritis, nothing that necessarily has a quote-unquote test, but is more symptom-based?
Thank you for the question. I don't know the answer. I'm sure someone from research could pull that up. And I'll also say, you all as the legislative body, you're in charge of determining what the policies are for the state employee health plan. I think you just passed a bill right before this regarding the state employee health plan. This bill would mandate coverage on private employer-sponsored health insurance outside of the state employee health plan as well. So I don't know if that's helpful, and I don't know the answer.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions for Mr. Weens? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. All right, I have no one else listed as an opponent. Anyone would like to speak? Yes.
Before you close the hearing, I'd just like to ask research. I think it was 2 years ago in this committee, we had as a briefing on the steps that we go through before we impose an insurance mandate. I'd like to ask if we could recover that or find some similar document, just because it's slipped my mind all the different steps that you have to go through. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Apparently, we do it during a budget debate now. But research, I would certainly love to see how the way it's supposed to work. All right. Yes.
I just wanted to note, we do have a list of the benefit mandates that have been placed on the state employee health plan. There's 15 that have been placed since 1974. The most recent was autism spectrum disorder, which was added in 2014.
All right. Very good. Seeing no further testimony, positive, negative, neutral, I will close the hearing on HB 2834 and HB 2824, and we are adjourned.